led you to starting Turnaround? What's the story?
The turnaround was actually born at a retreat. I actually went on this retreat in another hat. I actually went in the Dailycom hat, and I was expecting to go to this retreat about growing Dailycom and doing more with Dailycom. And as the retreat got on and we started getting more involved, we actually got underneath that there's more to Amanda. So what more can Amanda do other than Dailycom? And there was some amazing business ladies there, and they started talking about what I do, the strengths, what I did for Dailycom. And they actually posed the idea, why don't you set up a consultancy? At the time I was, as everybody does, doubt that they could do it, doubt they've got the skills and everything. And the more and more I thought about it, the more by the time I came back from the retreat, it was decided, yes, go and do it. So within 2 weeks after coming back from the retreat, the business name was set up, everything was set up. And I started then just letting people know that I was going to do this. And then the next week I ended up with the first client. So that is basically how the turnaround got set up. So I didn't go with the intention of setting it up, but from the business retreat, she got designed, she got developed, and off it went from there.
So it evolved quite quickly then?
It did,
really?
It did. I think I was very fortunate that people knew of me. I've been in Dailycom for quite a little while, so I think my face was known. The people that I'd worked with had seen what I was about, how I'd worked at the business, and yeah, we always used to go on coaching, and we always used to work in groups. So again, people got to know how I worked, and it was literally a link back to the coaching, which was my first client actually, and that what got her off the ground.
Wow. And so what does Turnaround aim to do? What's the Turnaround aim to do for clients?
My biggest passion is actually letting leaders fall back in love with the business. And when I mean that, I think when you actually get in the hamster wheel of work, sometimes you actually forget what the business was set up for. A lot of us start a work thinking that it will give us this life, it will give us freedom, it will give us money, it will give us choice. Whereas a lot of times the business actually does the opposite. It starts building up stress, it starts taking up your time, and before you actually know it, your life becomes work. Your family life disappears. In my instance, your marriage disappears, and actually the quality of life sometimes can disappear. So what the turnaround was set up about is actually bringing love and life back within a business.
So really essentially helping people perhaps hit sort of a burnout really with their business and their life in general. Yeah.
Absolutely, I think business can just take over. It becomes like an animal that you just have to keep feeding, and sometimes the more it grows, the more that you have to feed it, that the more complicated and the more energy it consumes out of you sometimes.
Is that why you think perhaps burnout's so common with leaders?
I do, and a lot of issues with leaders is they don't let go. And because they don't let go, they take more and more on, and in certain instances they even create a bottleneck, and then that bottleneck actually restricts them to not being able to let go. Being there myself, one of the most hardest things is to let go at the same time, because it depends on a lot of trust that you have with your staff, and trust has to be earned, and it's difficult because you want the staff to grow, but at the same time some leaders don't let go to let the staff to grow. So it's a difficult balance to get.
And I'd imagine that you have to implement a lot of changes or work with a lot of changes for leaders to sort of alter the way that they work or their lifestyles and their attitudes. Do some clients struggle at that stage with changes? Can there be resistance?
Absolutely. A lot of the times what I'm actually finding is emotions drive a lot of choices and decisions. And when you actually start getting into emotions, people tend to be very vulnerable, and that's the leader themselves. And often you can take things very personally. You can take things personally if people question how you act. You can even take things very personally on what things are said and how they're said. And my job is actually sometimes to say what doesn't need to be said, because you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, sometimes it is very, very difficult. But often, after going through the difficult period, it actually becomes better because people then see change, and the staff see change, the leader sees change, and then the culture changes. So yeah, you have to go through the difficult period to get there. I often talk about the muddy bucket. And for me, when you go in, if you can imagine a bucket of water sitting outside, and it's been out there for quite a little while, and when you look in, the bottom of the bucket is covered in silt, but the water at the top has become clear. So in all intents and purposes, the water is quite settled and clear. However, if you want to get that bucket clean, you have got to go and touch the silt. As soon as you start touching the silt, the water becomes muddy. So for a short while, you actually can sometimes feel that you're making the situation worse. But you have to start stirring up the silt to get the water clean. And it's only when you start moving the silt, getting the dirt out, and start doing the cleansing exercise, then only will the water become clear. So you have to kind of go through the muddy bucket syndrome to actually get to the end. So that is one of the most challenging and difficult things to do. That sounds
like a real challenge. That's where the challenge point comes, where people think, have I regretted even starting this process, perhaps? Do you get that, where clients might be like...
And a lot of it is related to change. We don't like change. Nobody really likes change. It can be quite threatening in some ways and scary, especially when you're talking change from the leader and you're talking change from members of staff as well. It's about taking people out of the comfort zone, and as soon as you start taking people out of the comfort zone, that is when it starts hitting people. But there's so many fabulous coaches, there's so many books that actually says that is the time that you actually grow.
Yeah, good things happen. Yeah.
And it's one of the most nervy times as well. So yeah, it's very difficult.
So that potentially then is one of the most limiting parts of it. That period where they're thinking, oh, should I have started this or not? It's really difficult. Everything's turned on its head.
It is. But I think over time it does settle down, and it's about not going for change all at once. It's like the little 1%. So what we aim for is the little incremental changes, and before we know it, within 3 months, 4 times, all the little changes have added up, and so there's some very quick wins that we try to get. So the quick wins are then what makes people feel more comfortable, whether it's a member of staff that's taken on that extra job, or whether it's a leader that's just changed the way that they deal with somebody and they got a different reaction, or whether it's that major account that somebody's just taken over and they've won that big order from. As soon as we start getting the momentum and the changes, people then start going on board. Again, it's not a case of trying to find people out, it's to try and find people in. And I think as soon as people start realising that is what it's all about, is then when people
That's a great way
happy with it.
Positively start the process, I guess, isn't it? Yeah. Do you find that you predominantly help businesses or leaders when they are at crisis point, or is it for a range?
Not at all, really. I have got a strong background in sales. I've been in sales for over 23 years. So yeah, sometimes people will come in because they've got bottlenecks in sales. Some of the staff aren't performing how they want it. Perhaps the key performance indicators aren't there as clear as what they want it, and there's a little bit of lack of structure and strategy. So sometimes you can get involved in that. Most of the time, it's when a leader's feeling swamped. It again is coming back to the work lifestyle, that no matter what they do, they're on this hamster wheel, and they cannot get off this hamster wheel no matter what they do, and they're in this circle that they do more, which then leads to more, and then more work, more stress, more issues throughout the business, and that's when it really becomes a real passion, actually, because you can see, again, talking back to the burnout, the leader is starting to reach that point.
They just keep putting more of themselves in.
They do, absolutely. if something isn't working quite right, perhaps it's more hours that I need to do then, or do something more, or take control of something more, or, you know, go back to the situation and pull it back from the member of staff, you know, to try and get control. Whereas again, in some ways it's the opposite. So yeah, it is that I love getting involved in, and the more stickier it gets, actually, the more I love getting involved.
But I'd imagine it's open to all though, isn't it? Because, you know, you may have businesses that are at a certain level, but they want to, you know, take it further, or perhaps set up a succession plan and things like that, you know. So
yeah, definitely succession. That is something that holds very dear to me, actually. I think when you set up a business, it's nice to leave a legacy. And if you can leave the legacy to the people that have worked hard for you and have really driven hard to make the business a success, I think it's a win-win. I think quite a few leaders actually forget about the exit, actually, and again get caught up on the hamster wheel, that they don't actually plan for when they want to leave, or what the plans are. And again, it comes back to, what is the whole purpose behind the business? You know, was it to give you life? Was it to give you money? What was the purpose? So yeah, if we are talking about succession, it's not going to happen overnight. So it's a matter of putting in the strategy, finding the little superstars within the business that you perhaps want to be able to hand over more, to be able to make more accountable and help grow the business. Yeah.
And do you think leaders should ever think they don't need to learn anymore, or is it a...
Oh no, absolutely not. I think if somebody actually thinks that they know it all, then wow,
they need to.
I'm just doing a leadership course now, getting more involved in a coaching course in September. I don't think the learning ever stops, and every day you just learn something new about somebody else. You learn a slightly different technique, you learn a different questioning, you learn a different viewpoint. You never ever stop.
Well, your
learning.
experience as a leader yourself, that you know that you want to continue learning, and you always will, and things like that. So it's from direct experience.
It's from all the mistakes that you make. I almost reached burnout with Daily.com. You know, I became an absolute workaholic. It took over my marriage. It took over the time of me being able to be a mum. It totally consumed me, and I think once you've actually been in that position and been there, you can actually see it and sense it a lot more. So you keep learning. I'm still on the pathway. My business is still going through rapid change, and I'm handing over. We're trying to create an atmosphere for people to take it over, to bring people in to run it. It's not easy. No, it really isn't easy.
No. But then that's why I'd imagine your clients can relate to you so well. You know you're doing it now. It's not even that you've had experience, you're actually living it.
It's an ongoing journey.
It's
a very ongoing journey. You know, we've been through culture issues, we've been through recession issues, we've been through family issues. You know, from working at Daily.com and going through the trials and tribulations, so to speak, you've gained a lot of experience from it, and you've learned a lot from it.
Living and breathing what you're talking about, really, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Evolving yourself. So yeah,
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you.